Hey everybody, how's it going? I'm attorney Michael Ehline. I'm an attorney licensed to practice law in California and Texas, and I've been taking this opportunity these last couple of days to share things with you on my way to the gym. And I was hoping that I could get some acknowledgement that you can hear me, because I've noticed that in the last couple of shows we've had an issue with comms where nobody can hear me, that kind of a thing. And I know that my show isn't scheduled to go live for a couple more minutes, but I did click the live button. So, hey, what's going on, BZ? Good seeing you, brother. So, I'm glad you made it. I'm actually BZ, so I have a phone interview scheduled with, and then I'll obviously set that up for later viewing. And then what I'd like to do is talk to you and Ryan about maybe going live on Saturday or Sunday if you guys are available. Sunday is going to be a lot more difficult for me because Gunner's got his judo tournament, but Saturday, tomorrow, probably would work. All right, so I'm glad that I got comms. So anyways, I'm attorney Michael Ehline. I am an attorney licensed in California and Texas, and I primarily do catastrophic injury cases, but I also am a civil rights lawyer, and I primarily only handle police shootings and tight handcuff cases involving finger and hand amputations when it comes to civil rights claims. Excuse me. And I mainly do catastrophic motorcycle accidents and car accident claims in Texas and California, but my background is appellate law. You know, I used to extern for the California Court of Appeal, and I have a lot of experience in government accountability operations, and so that's why a lot of people follow me. And today what I'm going to talk about is Governor Hobbs, and it reminded me the other day of this assembly bill, I guess it was, in Arizona, where there was a bill pending before the Arizona state legislature. I think 7 Democrats actually joined in it, and I think all the Republicans joined in it, that the communist Chinese, and we know that there is no private people in communist China, they're all government agents of the communist Chinese, are not allowed to own more than 30%, which I think is crazy. They shouldn't be able to hold any property anywhere. Hi, Dad. Hi, Kurt. And so the bill was that the communist Chinese, and again, anybody who's a communist Chinese is property of the communist Chinese government. There is no freedom, there is no individual rights in communist China. You are an agent of the communist Chinese government. If you're in this country, you are an agent of the communist Chinese government. Okay, so repeat after me. If you're a communist Chinese and you are in the United States, you are an agent of the communist Chinese government. So it kind of blew me away that they're even having a debate about this, but this was a bill before the Arizona legislature that I think 7 Democrats actually joined on, which I was shocked that any of them would, and all the Republicans joined on, that the communist Chinese government or their agents, anybody who's a communist Chinese, could not own more than 30% of U.S. farmland located near military bases. And Governor Hobbs, of course, vetoed that. I mean, you can't make this stuff up, guys. You can't make this stuff up. And then it reminded me of this story about a woman named Jacqueline Berger, an Arizona insurance agent who I guess had a falling out with a husband or something like that, and had brought forth information and evidence that Governor Hobbs, this is years ago, I think 2014 if I'm not mistaken, I don't even know if she was a governor at the time, and it could be 2024, I could be, well, I can't remember, but I know that it was recently, that she had been receiving bribe money along with judges and Arizona government officials from the communist Chinese government, as well as the Sinaloa drug cartel. And you can't make this stuff up, guys. You can't make this is real. And so she made these allegations, and then of course the allegations de facto consisted of, to wit, that family members family members of government employees like Governor Hobbs, judges, including judges in Pima County, by the way, including judges in Pima County. So that's why I'm hoping Reluctant Prophet will pop by, because I'm trying to get a hold of this Jacqueline Brager. Jacqueline Brager, she's an Arizona insurance agent, okay? So I've been doing my research, guys, that these government employees, elected officials primarily, and judges were receiving kickbacks, payoffs, and bribes to make sure that the Mexican-U.S. border stayed open so the drug cartels could continue flooding humans and drugs, human trafficking operations. We know that you can't even come across the Mexican border unless you give at least $10,000 to the Mexican drug cartel. And so it makes sense that they'd want to pay off politicians and judges in a place like Arizona, where they have a nice big open border, to make sure that those people can get safe passage, right? Doesn't that make sense? Because we know based on other stories I've done about the DEI hires, that once they make mayor, that they have their own private police force, that the police agencies, that the sheriffs do the bidding of the mayor and the politicians. So if they can pay off the judges, the mayors, and everybody at the top, all of that corruption flows downhill to the police department. So I was doing some additional research, and what the allegations are is that using mortgage fraud, and this is an insurance agent with evidence, allegedly, they were using mortgage fraud to basically give family members, so there's not such a direct link, to family members, properties, real estate, as well as apparently, not her, but from other sources I've heard, this is a very common practice with the cartels as well as communist Chinese, stemming as far back as the Clintons, when they were receiving suitcases full of gold, silver, and cash from communist Chinese General Charlie Tree. And we know that the communist Chinese love it when they can corrupt a politician because they get more favorable trade status. So let's think about it. The communist Chinese are working with the Mexican drug cartels to flood fentanyl into our country, as well as human trafficking. We know that Sleepy Joe let in at least 50,000 communist Chinese males, military-age males, just let them walk across the border. So you start thinking about, bribes and payoffs. I mean, people were paying $500,000 for Hunter Biden's artwork. That's obviously some kind of a money laundering scheme, in my opinion. And so you put all the facts together, and then you go back to Jacqueline Brager in Arizona, this insurance agent, saying that she has this evidence that there was a money laundering scheme, a bribery scheme involving the cartels and the communist Chinese in Arizona, including Pima County judges and government officials. And so her allegations were dismissed by who? A judge. The same judges that said there was no evidence of voter fraud. Well, why would they find evidence of voter fraud if they're part of the voter fraud scheme? Is this making sense so far, guys? Well, they didn't say there's no evidence of voter fraud. They said there's no evidence of significant voter fraud. Like how they word that. And then the propaganda agencies, the lamestream press, the enemy of the American people, came out and, of course, parroted that. And then anybody who went to a public school or is on a Marxist college campus will just parrot whatever they hear from the propaganda ministry of CNN or PMSNBC or even faux news. And so in this case, I got to thinking, and I was like, well, I know that at least 2 to 3% of my viewership are hardcore critical thinkers. And I just wanted to share something with you. I would say at least 90% of my cases, and the vast majority of criminal defense and prosecutorial cases, are won based on what? Circumstantial evidence. So when the news media comes out and says there's no evidence, well, for example, the whole Haitians eating dogs and cats. Well, we know in Haiti that they're big time into voodoo and that they regularly eat dogs and cats in Haiti. And that Joe Biden flooded Springfield, Ohio with voodoo worshiping Haitians. And that people, citizens of Springfield, were calling and leaving 911 messages and phone calls that in fact these Haitians were stealing their dogs and cats and eating them. And even saying they saw them being eaten. But the news media came out and said, well, there's no evidence. There's no evidence of these Haitians eating dogs and cats. Well, but there is. And so there's two types of evidence. There's direct evidence and there's circumstantial evidence. The 911 phone calls are circumstantial evidence. In most cases are won based on what? Circumstantial evidence. So whenever I hear these partisan propaganda people from the news, or when I hear stories that there's no evidence, so that's a lie. There is evidence, it's just not direct evidence. So I want you to distinguish the difference between direct evidence and circumstantial evidence, number one. So getting off of the Haitian topic, because we know for a fact that Haitians eat dogs and cats. It's very common in Haiti. So if you bring people like that into your country and you don't force them to swear an oath of allegiance, you don't force them to adapt to your customs before you just let them flood across your border, of course they're going to bring what with them? Their customs. Their customs are going to be brought with them. So that is circumstantial evidence that they were eating dogs and cats. So now moving on from that, getting into the circumstantial evidence of bribery and fraud. Well, we know that Jacqueline Brager had her case thrown out based upon no direct evidence that was provided to the court, okay? And how would she have access to all of this direct evidence when it was an under-the-table scheme? Well, she wouldn't. Her and her lawyer were silenced, and they were silenced by the court system. And we saw what happened to Lane Myers when he tried to expose corruption. He's in jail as well. We see that Reluctant Prophet has also found evidence of really corrupt politicians in Pima County, corrupt sheriffs. I guess even one of these government employees is a known pedophile. The same people who are trying to legalize putting tampon machines in the boys' room and Drag Queen Story Hour always seem to be connected with all this stuff, don't they? So I started thinking a little bit more about it. And then lo and behold, I see that there was a bill before the Arizona legislature to make it illegal for the communist Chinese to own any more than 30% of farmland located outside of U.S. military bases. Well, I mean, obviously, you know the communist Chinese don't like us. We know that they incorporated backdoor technology into electric grid components that they sold the United States that enables them to remotely turn off our power. And Biden still went ahead and proceeded with those purchases, knowing that that technology is in our power grid. And so I just started thinking, you know, there's no way that this could be happening unless someone's getting bribed or paid off. So in this particular case, I wanted to share with you the difference, because you're not going to hear this in the mainstream news. You're not going to hear this from someone who's a partisan. Me being a libertarian, I think it gives me the ability to sort of think outside the box. And by the way, thanks, Rami, for joining me, man. The WWE. I didn't see that one, brother. I got to check that out. Oh, you mean with yeah, right, with Trump and Musk. Man, it's just more mudslinging, right, guys? Look, these guys are all part of the same club, and guess what, guys? We ain't in it, all right? These guys all hung out with Epstein, including Musk, and they've all got dirt on each other, and that's the problem that I have with this two-party system. See, they're part of the same club. I can equate it, Rami, to the U.S. Marines, right? So in the Marine Corps, us infantry guys, we think we're the best, and we make fun of all the other units, the pokes, persons other than grunts, we call them pokes. And we make fun of the air wing, and we're always trying to get more of a budget for us, and they're trying to get more of a budget for them. But at the end of the day, they're part of the same club. So that's all politicians are, Democrats as well as Republicans. They're part of the same club, and we ain't in it. Billionaires, oligarchs, and party donors. So let's get back into Katie Hobbs. So Katie Hobbs vetoes this bill, but at least this time a few Democrats actually joined with the Republicans. I think they can see the writing on the wall that people are becoming more intelligent about what's going on in Arizona. Lucky for her, a lot of transplants from California who believe anything CNN tells them are there to vote. They'll just blindly vote for anything with a D in front of it because they've been brainwashed to do that in the single-party state of California since birth by the public school system and the college system. That's why they want to give you a free education, to make sure you get more political propaganda. But at the end of the day, I was looking at this and I was going, you know what? This is crazy. So let me explain to you guys what circumstantial evidence is. And again, the vast majority of cases, and I am a lawyer with over 20 years experience, so I'm not speaking out my ass, are won based on circumstantial evidence. So evidence that there is circumstantial evidence that Katie Hobbs could very well be an agent of the Communist Chinese Party. And we know that just based upon the fact that she vetoed this bill, that could be used as evidence in a court of law, assuming she didn't have all this governmental immunity, that she potentially could be receiving payoffs or bribes from the Communist Chinese. There's just too much overwhelming circumstantial evidence to make me think otherwise. And so basically, circumstantial evidence is evidence that reasonably tends to show guilt or innocence. So other than, say, like fingerprints could be circumstantial evidence, as opposed to a videotape of the actual crime being committed, which would be more like direct evidence. So I'm almost to the gym, but I just wanted to share this with you guys. So yes, there is circumstantial evidence in the form of an insurance agent who swore under penalty of perjury in court that in fact these people are receiving payoffs, and that she had direct evidence of it herself. And that should be deemed enough to be circumstantial evidence, even if she didn't have all the documents, to show that there should at least be an inquiry opened. And now with this veto, that's additional circumstantial evidence that Katie Hobbs could very well be an agent of the Communist Chinese Party. So just think about that, guys. That's what circumstantial evidence is. It's evidence that tends to reasonably show guilt or innocence, and that is how the vast majority of lawsuits as well as criminal cases are won by prosecutors. And so I want you guys to all think about that very carefully, not just take my word for it, but do your own research and do your best if you can assist me in helping me locate Jacqueline Brager so I can get an interview with her. I don't know if she is in fear for her life. I don't know what's going on, but we know that the cartels pay you with lead or gold. That's your payment. And we know that they use these very same tactics and techniques in Mexico, and they have been for hundreds of years, apparently, or at least 100 years that I'm aware of. That's how the pre-party was able to stay in power. That pre-party was a single, just like California, a single party government that survived based upon voter fraud and bribes. So just think about that. Look at what's happening in Arizona. Look at the allegations that Jacqueline Brager made. Look at the fact that Governor Hobbs vetoed a bill that would prevent communist Chinese from owning farmland near U.S. military bases. And I think that there is probably enough circumstantial evidence for you, to, if you're a critical thinker and not a Democrat Party activist like Jennifer Harwood, that you would be able to look through all of the nonsense and come up with your own conclusions. And so reasonable deductions can be gathered from the circumstantial evidence that Governor Hobbs could very well be a communist Chinese agent and an agent of the drug cartels. And if you look at the evidence that Reluctant Prophet has provided, the direct evidence that Reluctant Prophet has provided about corrupt Pima County government officials, I think that we will be able to, the intelligent people on my channel, there's only maybe 2 to 3% of you who are truly critical thinkers. Well, you're right. Well, see, Rami, I have a different view on the cops. See, I believe that it all flows from the top down. I believe that the cartels want to pay off all of the politicians first, and the politicians make the blue line, the thin blue line gang, their personal agents. And we've seen that in these DEI cases that I've discussed in other states where the mayors were, it was Harwood, Tiffany, I'll go back into it, but I did a bunch of videos about this where the mayor basically appoints all of her buddies to be the chief and all that. And they give extra overtime and time and a half to all the corrupt cops to make sure they're making like $1 million a year, right, as a patrol cop, right? And that's how they do it. So besides the fact that there are just a lot of bad cops, right, I think that it's the politicians who are who are the role models for those cops. And I agree with you that cops have the weapons to enforce the tyranny, absolutely. But I believe they're being directed and commanded by corrupt leadership. And it's just like in the Marine Corps. If you have a shitty officer, if you have a shitty command, you're going to have shitty troops. And that goes for any military branch. So It starts from the top down. I think it takes a certain type of corruptible person to want to take those jobs. But if you look at the circumstantial evidence, I think that you'll see that there is overwhelming circumstantial evidence that many government officials, Republicans and Democrats, but primarily the Democrats in Arizona, are corrupted and probably agents of the communist Chinese government as well as the drug cartels. And again, you can't even get a body across the Arizona border unless you pay off the drug cartels. So it makes sense that they would want to corrupt the government employees and politicians in the state that's on the border the most, because that's how you're going to get your people across the easiest. And they have a much bigger border, so it's easy as opposed to California, right? And and most of the southern California counties are more conservative and pro-USA, and they don't want illegal aliens in their country. They want to make sure that people that come into the country are at least capable of respecting our laws and our way of life, right? So I would want to, top down, yeah. And Rami, look, you and I both agree on the same basis and the same basic things. So it's just, as a lawyer, I try to look deeper into it. So today was really a lesson in circumstantial evidence. So there's two types of evidence, direct and circumstantial. I believe there's overwhelming circumstantial evidence that the government of Arizona, especially the governor of Arizona, is corrupted by the communist Chinese. And I think that as time goes on, that evidence will come out that she is on the take. And I think that's why she doesn't even campaign when she runs for election, because when you control the voting machines and you control all the poll watchers and the vote counters, how are you ever going to lose? Give me a bunch of ones if you agree. So with that being said, guys, I'm going to go train. It was good seeing you guys today. It was a short video today. I just wanted to just share with you so you'd learn a little bit about circumstantial evidence and why the news media lies to you and how to spot it, how to become a critical thinker. When they say there's no evidence or there's no overwhelming evidence, they're lying. There is indirect evidence, which is the way the vast majority of cases are won in court. Most cases never involve a smoking gun. Name one murder case that you know of in recent history that involves a smoking gun. They all pretty much are based on circumstantial evidence, and that evidence would be weighed by the trier of fact. And you guys today are my trier of fact. So if any of you can do me a big favor who are in Arizona, or any of you who know Jacqueline Brager, please do some research on her and help me find her. I'd love to interview her. My gut feeling is that she probably is in fear for her life, and that is probably why those cases didn't move forward. But if there is a way to get me an interview, I'd love to talk to her. The fact that she hasn't been fired from being an insurance agent tells me that she hasn't been found guilty of lying under oath. So that can only tell me one thing: she was telling the truth. So again, to be an insurance agent is a very difficult thing. You have to pass a serious background check, and you have to be of highly chaste character, at least according to the examinations and whatnot. So Jacqueline Brager would be the first step, I think, in uncovering and unwinding all of this stuff. And I believe, hey, USMC vet, you're not blackballed by me, brother. Anybody who's a USMC vet is always welcome here. My guess is that most of the comments are being blocked by YouTube. Yeah, that's right. But USMC vet, guys, Rami, I think USMC vet's been around here for a while. I don't think that I'm capable of, hold on a minute. All right, give me 1 second here. So USMC vet, you are now officially a moderator on my channel. With great power comes great responsibility. So everybody give a bunch of ones to USMC vet. Remember, the main reason I make people moderators is so my other moderators won't time them out or block their comments. Not so you can wield all this power and block people, unless they're real scumbags. And I would recognize you being a jarhead, that you would know what's up and to do the right thing. Kevin Biernarski, right on, brother. Hey, David, good seeing you. So Jeff Hates Pigs, right on, brother. And Jeff Hates Pigs, I think you're a mod already, right? I think. Let me take a look. I thought that Jeff Hates Pigs was a moderator. Well, guess what? Jeff Hates Pigs, you are now a moderator for Team MPE. So everybody, welcome Jeff Hates Pigs aboard. Same speech: with great power comes great responsibility, Jeff. Just make sure that you wield it well, and just don't be constantly blowing people out. Veterans are always going to the front of the line with me because you took an oath to uphold the Constitution, And again, at Team MPE, I'm not one of these guys who is super political where I want you to agree with me on everything. I encourage you guys to be critical thinkers. And then Tom Shaw, make it on a couple more shows. I've seen you around. I like what you have to say. We're going to make you a moderator. Remind me, Mr. Osgood and Jeff Hates Pigs, next time Tom Shaw is around, to give him a wrench too. I'm going to go train. With that being said, make sure to like and subscribe. Make sure to save, because we never know when the thought police are going to take down this channel. Semper Fi, do or die. See you guys. Take care.